Hi guys, welcome to your very first video of Drawing 2. I know that you are excited to start, and so am I. One of the very first things I wanted to talk to you about is, what your first project is. So we are talking about still life today. I know that you guys have probably seen still lifes before, pictures of fruit, and so on and so forth. When you are talking about classical art. Now, what used to be a major purpose of a still life is to show wealth or prosperity for wealthy families or members of the aristocracy that paid for the artist to create a painting or a drawing. And then later on it started to be used just as we're using it, as kind of a way to practice shapes, values, colors. If you set up a scene and you sketch it, then it doesn't move and you can kind of manipulate it from there. So what I want you to do today is go get a series of objects. They can be meaningful. They can represent you. I basically just picked some things that I found that I like the look of, and I put them together. I found a jewelry box, some jewelry, a perfume bottle, and a scarf that I really like. Now I placed it on the scarf just to kind of add some interest, add some fabric folds, and the scarf ended up being textured, so I'll explain that a little bit later. But what I really wanted to talk to you first about is, if you need to pause the video right now to go get your scene together, then do so. Pick some objects that you like, probably 3 or 4. Don't get too complicated. And then when you come back, we'll talk about materials. So pause now if you have to go get your scene set up. Okay, so now let's talk about materials. Your materials that you should get if you want to do a charcoal drawing are just a few things. So this right here may look to you like a little piece of dirt. That's because it sort of is right now. This is a kneadable eraser, or a piece of it. So a kneaded or kneadable eraser, I've heard both, is an eraser that you can manipulate. It kind of feels like a piece of gum. And this is used for all kinds of drawing, but it's best for charcoal drawing. Now, the good thing about a kneaded eraser is, you see how I'm playing with it right now. I'm taking the dirt off of it, so it's usable again. The more you play with it, the cleaner it gets. So I just made my charcoal drawing, and well, the one that I'm about to show you guys. And right now I'm trying to clean off the eraser. Now, the best thing about it is you can manipulate it. If you want to do a skinny shadow or a small shadow, you can sort of create a point and use it like that. If you want to erase a big area, you can fold it flat like this and erase a big area. So they usually come in little squares at the art store, and they're cost about $1.99 to $2. Another thing, charcoal. Now this is, I'm going to show you the bottom, willow charcoal. They come in thin, medium, and thick. The difference between willow charcoal and charcoal pencils or compressed charcoal is just that. Compressed charcoal is compressed. Willow charcoal is a little bit looser and a little bit easier to work with, I find. The problem with compressed charcoal is it has more pigment in the little stick or in the pencil, and you'll find that if you use it, your paper becomes saturated with charcoal a little bit easier. I'll explain what I mean in a minute. Another thing that I got for this project, or I just had sitting around that would be a good idea, is a little piece of white chalk. Now, this is compressed white charcoal, but white chalk works too. And then, of course, your sketchbook. So I got a sketchbook, an Amazon deal. It was 2 sketchbooks for $8, and it is specifically for charcoal. And let me grab that really quick. Hang on, it's on the floor. Okay, so my sketchbook you'll see this brand in art stores. Whew. This is Strathmore, and it says charcoal on it. Now what, Miss Lucas, you might ask, is the difference between charcoal paper and not charcoal paper? Well, it's the grain. So if you look really closely, there's kind of like a grid or a bumpy surface to the charcoal paper that kind of allows it to accept the charcoal a little bit more. If you try to draw with charcoal on regular printer paper, the surface is too smooth and it gets saturated with color a little bit quicker. That being said, I think I covered everything. I'm about to show you how to start your drawing. So when you're set up, go ahead and press play, and then you can watch me go through my drawing. Now, I did speed it up. Keep in mind, this is at 600%. All in all, this took me about like an hour and a half. So, to you, it'll look like it took 12 minutes. So, good luck. All right, so after you set your scene, I want you to cover your blank page with a mid-tone and blend. So once you have your objects, you're going to do this. You're going to add in this medium tone, not too dark, not too light. And then I want you to complete a quick sketch of your composition. Now, composition, I mean your layout, where you're going to put your objects and how they're going to be situated. And you'll notice that once I found my scene, I started to do a really quick sketch of it. So then after you do a really quick sketch, you can add detail, and this takes a long time. You can see me adding the pearls coming out of my jewelry box. You can see me add some folds in the curtain behind my table. That's a lamp there that I'm working on. You can only see the corner of it, and that's okay. I don't need to include the entire lamp, but you can see I'm adding just little bits of detail, deciding what I think is important. Now there's me adding some detail in my perfume bottle. Those of you that took drawing 1 with me, you'll recognize that I've used that before. And it's okay to have a certain amount of objects that you like to use in your drawings. Now, obviously, I don't want you to turn in the same thing all the time, but if there's a couple of things that you really like to draw, you can incorporate in a few things. You can see how I'm adding some shadow. Now, the way that you add shadow with charcoal is you use the charcoal stick, you kind of do a little scribble, and then you blend it in with your finger. You can see how I'm doing that. Again, this is sped up by 600%, so I'm not really that. Look, I just covered my pearls. I know that I want to put the pearls there, but I discovered that I need to create my background before I can add my pearls because they're lighter. And that's okay. You can do that with charcoal. It's easy to manipulate. So I zoomed ahead a little bit just because the really only thing I was doing is adding more and more detail. So you can see how I'm kind of noticing my subject. I'm putting a photo up now for you guys so that you can see what I'm working from, my scene, so to speak. Now I did have a candle there, but I decided to take it out. All right, so you see how I'm adding light. So the way that you add shadow is with the charcoal. The way you add light is with the eraser that I showed you. I have my little point of an eraser, and the next step is deciding what's important and what you want to emphasize. So I'm trying to find my shadows and my light and my highlights. And the way I'm doing my highlights is with the eraser, and the way I'm doing my shadows is with the charcoal stick and then blending with my finger. I also see me playing with my eraser. I'm trying to get it clean. I'm adding more highlights on the curtain behind. And I think I just realized that my outline's too heavy. Now, remember yesterday when or in your practice drawing assignment number 1, I talked about how you shouldn't have too heavy of an outline. Well, I did that. I have too heavy of an outline, and now I decided that I need to fix it. You can see me adding back in the pearls that I added before, but then I took out, so I'm doing that again. They're kind of pouring out of the jewelry box. Now, keep in mind, too, I played with this composition quite a bit. I had the jewelry box open, I had the candle there, I had a nail polish bottle, I had some earrings that I decided to take away. So this is me adding some sharp detail to my pearls. I know I've said this before, but you're going to add even more detail. So one of my art teachers described it as more information. So you're not really adding more detail. You're adding more information. You're just looking at your subject and being more descriptive. So I'm noticing highlights in the lamp. I'm noticing that shadow around the perfume bottle. Now keep in mind, I did this drawing in an hour and a half. My drawings in Italy used to take me 4 or 5 hours. So I'm not expecting you guys to do that. You can if you certainly want to, but it's not a quick drawing. It's kind of fun to play with. All right, see me adding more shadows, more detail. Kind of just, you can see I'm almost sharpening it up. I also think I'm avoiding the fabric because I knew it was going to be tough. So this is all about tweaking and adjusting. In addition to adding more detail, you take things away that you don't like. Add things that you want to add. You can see I noticed that since the lamp is above my jewelry box, that the top is actually a highlight, not a shadow. Now, I've noticed my mistake in the angle of the box and in the shadows. Well, I completely erased the detail at the top of the box, and I'm going to add it in later. I realized my mistake. So it's all about tweaking and adjusting. All right, I took a major step back and I looked for mistakes, and in addition to the light on the top of the box, I noticed that I really didn't like my fabric. I kind of made up that big line that you see, and I decided to go with something else. Now you see I zoomed ahead a little bit, but you can see how I've kind of changed the fabric. And I think that I originally did not want to add the texture of the fabric, but then you can see me going in and doing it now. It's kind of like a ribbed scarf, so I went in and kind of adjusted that. You can see me, I made that fold bigger. I'm blending, I'm erasing. It's all about using your eyes and adjusting as much as you can. Now, here's me adding the texture of the fabric. I think I finally decided to start doing it. And like I said, like I'm saying at the top, detail, detail, detail. I didn't really like this drawing, I'll be honest, until I started to add this painstaking detail in the fabric. I don't know why. I started to it really started to come alive when I added this detail. I know I sound like a broken record, but you just sit there and you can, I mean, I was watching a movie while I did this, so. Well, more like listening to a movie, but have some fun with it. Add as much detail as you want. You can see me adding the shadows, adding the highlights, blending with my finger. I noticed I forgot the table there, so I just added that. I tried my very best to, I didn't use the graphics pad, as you can see. I used my actual sketchbook because I wanted you to see how it looks like on actual paper with a real hand and everything. So little details, little tweaking. All right, now I want you to focus on shadows and highlights. So I'm really emphasizing the darker shadows and adding the highlights that I've missed before. So you can kind of decide what shadows are kind of medium shadows, what shadows are dark. Where do you really want the emphasis to be? Now you can see in the perfume bottle especially, I'm noticing that there's a big highlight down the center. I'm adding shadows where the perfume used to sit. And all the while using my finger to soften it. I think this is when I drop my eraser because it's about to turn sideways a little bit. All right, more and more detail, more and more shadows, more and more highlights. All right, another tip is adding a border. So if you add a border around your drawing, then it kind of cleans it up a little bit. So, and you do that with the eraser. You see I rolled the eraser into kind of a flat, bigger piece, and I'm creating a clean border. Not a huge one, but enough so that it kind of looks a little bit neater, like a frame. Now it gets to a certain point where you tweak and adjust for so long that you realize that you're starting to mess it up instead of improve it. And that's usually when I call it quits. When I say, you know what, it was good and now it's kind of going the other direction. And that's because sometimes I can be a little bit too, I've used too much detail. Or I get too much of a perfectionist. Now you can see I'm adding that detail back on the top of the box that I had to erase before because I messed up. This time I'm being a little bit less detailed. I don't have to make it look exactly how it looks, but I did want to make like a suggestion of what it looks. So, you know, no one's going to hold this up next to the photo that I took of it and say, oh, Miss Lucas, this is not perfect. Because I know it's not perfect. It's not supposed to be. It's a drawing, not a photograph. So I kind of just made up the top to look sort of like how it really looks. The one thing about charcoal drawing is sometimes you'll do something really, really nice and then you'll smudge it with your hand and then you have to go back and fix it. So I think I'm fixing some of the things that I didn't do well before. Okay, now I'm going in and I think I'm going in with a white chalk and I'm making some finishing touches. Now I really usually don't use white chalk, to be honest with you. I don't know why I decided to do it today. I think it was because of the pearls. I really wanted to include the pearls, but the shadows are really hard to make with, or the highlights are really hard to make with the eraser. So I added a little bit of dots right there on the pearls, and I also added a highlight on that curtain, as you saw me just do. Sorry guys, my music had a commercial. And I think I'm done. So here's me kind of in slow motion, or sorry, regular motion, going around showing you the up-close details of the picture. And I think I'm pretty satisfied. I would give it a, I don't know, it's not my favorite drawing ever, but I'm pretty satisfied with it. Enough to stop. And there you go. I signed it, and I'm done.